Happiness Project. How we doing? How we doing? This is week 3 of Happiness Project, and I'm excited to be talking today and filling in for Dad. He's going to be back next Sunday, so be sure you come back. But really, this whole series, this whole summer series has been really exciting for me. I've loved the whole idea of the Happiness Project. Y'all, really, since scientists have begun studying our minds, I think it would be a consensus for all scientists that they would say that we really have actually barely even begun to scratch the surface of all that our mind can do. I mean, there is as much to learn about our brain and our minds as there is about the observable universe. I mean, we really just don't know that much. I mean, 100 years ago, if you'd gone to a psychologist for help, they'd probably lay you down on a couch and you would tell your story. You know, you'd tell kind of all of your worries, all of your concerns, and that's kind of how psychology worked. And within the last 50 years or so, the treatment has shifted from a passive analysis towards a presently focused solution. And more specifically, in the last 20 years, scientists and psychologists have been exploring an understanding of how we can learn to be healthier and happier people, and they call this positive psychology. And positive psychology can be defined as the scientific study of what makes life most worth living. And we're finding that there are things that we can learn to do, actually practices that we can develop and habits that we can form that will make our lives better. And remember the word better, and really the way that we use it here at the Village is a synonym for healthy, right? We say get better, do better, be better, get healthier, and do healthier things, and be healthier kind of people. And if life isn't going as well as you want it to, and maybe you're not as happy as you would like to be, I think there are things that we're learning here that are 100% spiritual, 100% comes from teachings of Jesus and just lessons that we learn from the Bible. And more so than that, they are currently being confirmed by latest scientific research in human psychology. And last week, Dad talked about savoring and gratitude. How was that for y'all this week? Did y'all do good? Did y'all try that? Did y'all try the practice of savoring and gratitude? Dad told the story of Jane just watching Jim hug people as they came through the door, and how that's just a little small thing for maybe most of us, but she's watched him and she savored that, and I love that. And I think when we practice those kind of things, we become happier and healthier people. And so if you haven't heard any of the talks, or maybe you weren't here last week, you can find all that at thevillageatlanta.com /. Is that the backslash, or is that? Yeah, that's the backslash. Happy. Thevillageatlanta.com. Is that right? Am I saying that right? That's right. Thevillageatlanta.com /happy. And by the way, you can watch the sermons and you listen to them and all that, but all the research that we've kind of been reading and studying, you can find that there as well, and I think that is very, very helpful. And this week we're going to add 2 more practices to your happiness tool bag. But for those of us who grew up in church, I don't think this is going to be new for any of you. But it's good for us to just remind each other. So the first practice we're going to talk about this morning is kindness. We're going to talk about being kind. I love this verse, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32. The Apostle Paul says this, he says, be kind, be compassionate, forgiving to each other in the same way that God forgave you in Christ. Be kind, be kind, be kind. And there's nothing new about teaching kindness in church. I think what is new, though, is that the more research that we have done and studies that scientists have done, they actually can study the effects of kindness in our lives, and they're finding that practicing kindness physically, literally makes us happier people. And one of the studies that we've been kind of going through over the past few weeks is a study, and you can read this in the Journal of Social Psychology. It was done by researchers in Great Britain. They had 86 participants, and they separated these 86 participants into 3 different groups. All right? So the first group, they said, I want you for the next 10 days, I want you to do 1 act of kindness every day. And you're going to do it for 10 days. That's what your goal is. That's what we want you to do. That's the first group. Second group, we also want you to perform one act of kindness over the next 10 days. Do it every day, one act of kindness every day for 10 days. But on top of that, we also want you to try one new thing, whatever that is. Maybe you've never learned how to ride a motorcycle. We want you to learn how to ride a motor. Do one new thing. Do something you've never done. And the last group wasn't given any instructions. Now, before they even did this, every participant was instructed to take a psychological test, similar to what we did, the happiness test. You know, have y'all done that yet? Has everybody taken the happiness test? If you haven't, go do that, because I think that's pretty cool, and you can find it on the website. But the participants were told to take this test, and they measured it before the 10 days, and they measured it after the 10 days. And can you guess with the two groups that they recorded as being happier at the end of those 10 days? And it was the groups that were told to do kind things to one another, you know. And the group that didn't do anything, of course, not much really changed for them. Listen, when we practice kindness, we are confirming that the universe is good and that all people are worthy of its goodness. Can I say that again? When we practice kindness, and it is a practice, we are confirming that the universe is good and that every single person in the universe is worthy of its goodness. Luke writes this story about Jesus. He says this, Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. We know this as the Good Samaritan. Luke says this: one day an expert in religious law stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question. He says, "Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus replied, "What does the law of Moses say? How do you read it?" And the man answered, "Well, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "Right," Jesus said, "that's right. Do this and you'll live." And the man wanted to justify his actions, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" And Jesus replied with a story. He says, a Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes. They beat him up. They left him half dead beside the road. And by chance, a priest came along. But when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. And then the temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. And going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. And then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. And the next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man, and if his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here." Now, which of these would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by bandits? Jesus asked. And the man replied, "The one who showed him mercy." And then Jesus says, "Yes, now you go doing the same." You go doing the same. Let's just dive into that for just a second, okay? So Jesus has, we have the scholar, right? We have the scholar who asks a question. But this guy doesn't ask a question because he wants an answer. He says, "What should I do to inherit eternal life?" But he's not asking that question because this guy's necessarily concerned with getting an answer. In fact, Richard Rohr calls this a dishonest question, right? You already have the answer before you even ask the question, but you just want to see if the other person agrees with you. All right? And so that's kind of, I do that sometimes. I bet y'all do it too. But he's just asking a dishonest question. He says, but Jesus is not offended by this guy's question, right? Jesus says, "Well, what is written in the law?" And this guy gives like the absolute perfect answer. He goes, "Well, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul. You love God and you love your neighbor. So you love God and you love people." And that's like where the parable should have ended. Right? Because that's a great answer. Jesus is like, yes, that's right. Go do that. Go do that. And sometimes we get so bogged down in like just the crazy stuff when it's like, love God, love people. But it doesn't end there, right? It doesn't end there. And so there's this telling line, and it says the man wanted to justify his actions. Did y'all catch that? I thought that was interesting that Luke wrote it like that. The man wanted to justify his actions. That this guy didn't really seem to care about any kind of truth. He just basically wants to look good, right? He has no interest in loving God. This guy wants to love himself. He is trying to justify himself. And so he asks Jesus, well, who exactly is my neighbor? And so Jesus goes into one of the most recognized parables in all of the world, and you know it's the Good Samaritan, right? And if you grew up in any kind of way in church, you know that the Samaritans were despised by the Jews. Now, Jesus was a Jew, and he was talking to a group of Jewish people, and what's more interesting is that because Jesus knew that the Jews hated the Samaritans, and Jesus decides to make the Samaritans the hero of the story. That's fascinating to me. And in fact, I actually think by Jesus making the Samaritans the hero of the story and not his own religion, to me that in itself is an act of kindness. It's like Jesus tells a story and he can make the Jews the hero of the story because he's Jew and he's talking to Jewish people, but he doesn't do that. He makes the Samaritans the hero of the story. And I think when we elevate the outcast, we stand on holy ground. Does that make sense? Anytime that we get a chance to elevate the outcast, and we'll teach that until we are just blue in the face here in this church. When we elevate the outcast, we are standing on holy ground. Does that make sense? Y'all with me? Elevate the outcast. Jesus does that in this story. So if the man was coming down from Jerusalem to Jericho, that means that the priest and the Levite and the Samaritan, they were all going up from Jericho to Jerusalem. And what's interesting about the Jericho road is that the Jericho road is a dangerous road. It is about 17 miles from Jerusalem down to Jericho. And that's not so dangerous, although that's kind of dangerous. But what's more dangerous is that there's a drop in elevation from Jerusalem down to Jericho of 3,600 feet. So this makes this road a winding, slow, meandering, kind of more like a trail than a road, right? And this road is conducive for self-interest. This road is conducive for self-preservation. It is a dangerous place. You could just hide behind a rock and then just go jack somebody up when they pass you, right? That's what you could do. And apparently that's what happened to this guy. And so he gets jacked up. He loses all of his money, loses all of his clothes. And the priest and the Levite think this guy is dead, all right? He's not dead, but they think he's dead. And because they're going up to Jerusalem, they're probably going to a ceremony. And by Jewish law, you could not touch anything that was dead. And so they risked being ceremoniously unclean if they were to touch this man. And they had to maintain ritual purity. And I think what another little interesting, subtle point that Jesus makes in here is that love is more important than ritual purity. Love is more important than ritual purity, right? They couldn't touch the guy. They couldn't touch him. The Samaritan came upon him and he was moved to compassion. And I love this. The man, he goes out of his way to be kind to this guy. He doesn't know this guy, but he just goes out of his way to be kind to him. And he takes him to the innkeeper. He soothes his wounds. He bandages his wounds. He pays for his room. And then he gives the innkeeper an additional cost, like if this guy needs more, tell him to get more, and I'll come back and pay you. That's amazing. That is amazing. Like, that is going the extra mile to show grace and to show love and to show kindness. You say, which one of these three was a neighbor to this man? Jesus asked. And of course, the man said, well, it's the one who showed mercy and kindness. And Jesus says, yeah. Go do that. I've been watching, we've got a group here, Michael Mason leads, that's like a village volunteer group. And to me, it's like one of the most beautiful things in all the world because, we are a part of a community here. We're a part of a larger community of Atlanta, then a smaller community of Hapeville and Tri-Cities, East Point, College Park. And Michael just says, you know what, there's needs that need to be met in our community, and so he puts together this village volunteer group. And I encourage you to either take a picture of that and go to that website and see what you can do to be a part, because there's a lot of different things. We've talked about a couple of them with going to Safe House this Thursday, and then the following Monday where we're actually packing lunches for kids. I mean, those are real tangible, kind of easy things that we can volunteer and be a part of. And to me, it's one of the most beautiful things in all the world. I mean, Michael provides dinner, and the group, they provide dinner to several hundred of our homeless, which we'll do that this Thursday. They collect hygiene kits for some of our brothers and sisters on the street who might not have a hygiene kit. Obviously, collection of clothes that we have back in the cafe for those who, there's some suits back there. Maybe somebody needs a suit for an interview. I mean, these are the kind of things that he is doing, and to me, it's one of the most tangible and eye-opening ways of what it means, how a church can be kind to our community. You know what I mean? And that's happening right here. I love this. Dr. Lynn Alden, she explains how kindness leads to happiness like this. She says it's really more of an attitude change. I mean, being alert of things that you can do for other people and doing them spontaneously because you want to do them. It has a side effect of making you feel good. Y'all, literally, kindness, when we do kind things, scientists have discovered that it actually releases feel-good hormones within us. It's called serotonin. That is like the neurotransmitter responsible for feelings of satisfaction and well-being. And when we do acts of kindness for other people, literally serotonin is released in our body, and it makes us feel good. You know what I mean? Have y'all felt that? I certainly have. Kindness eases anxiety. Scientists have discovered kindness is good for your heart. Kindness can reduce stress. Listen, you say, what are things that I can do? Listen, go volunteer someplace. Go volunteer here. We'd love to have you as a volunteer, but you don't have to. There's a million places you can go volunteer. You know what? You can go cut your neighbor's grass. That's one thing. One act of kindness that you can do. You can make a meal for a friend. You can give a compliment to somebody. Man, have you ever seen somebody light up when you give them a compliment? You say, man, you got a glow about you today. And then you see them light up. I mean, that's like the greatest thing in all of the world, to give somebody a compliment. You can pay for somebody's coffee. You can give somebody a hug. If they don't want the hug, then maybe you shouldn't give them a hug, but you know what I mean. Some people do just want a hug, just give them a hug. You can donate money. You can give a gift to some kind of a good cause, and maybe you're already doing that, and that's a good thing, and it makes you feel good. Or you can be kind to yourself, and you can turn the news off. That'd be helpful. Some of y'all need to start doing that, right? Just turn off the news. Good God. Do it for yourself. Talk to a child. I've got 2 kids, but you don't even have to have a kid. Just go have a conversation with a child. Can I tell you something? You will feel good about your life because they're just amazing. And you might start talking about baseball and somehow be talking about Star Wars, I don't know, kids are weird, but they will take you to places that you didn't think you could get to. You know what I mean? Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others as we kind of go through this happiness project. It is of vast importance that we remind you to be kind. Is that cool? Second practice is this: social connectedness. Social connectedness. All right. And to me, social connectedness flows out of acts of kindness. When you do an act of kindness to somebody else, you know what's happening. You are automatically connecting to that person in a real way. You know what I mean? You're automatically connecting in a real way. Social connectedness. One of the most beautiful things I think the church does for us is it involves us in community. You know what I mean? I mean, y'all could be, I don't know, y'all could be anywhere else in the world right now, but for whatever reason, you've decided that this is a place that might be important enough that you would show up to on a Sunday morning when you literally could be doing anything else. But to me, church involves us in community, and that we come together every week. And we come together, I think, to be a part of community, yes. I think we do it for, sometimes it is the healing hug that we just need, and we know that we can find it at this place, and we can. And sometimes it is to share not only in the pains that we have, but also in the victories that we have. Y'all listen, I'm the preacher's son, so I don't really have a choice to show up when I was 8 years old when we started this thing. But you know what? I know y'all, some of y'all for 25 years. And not only are y'all a part of my community, I mean, you are a part of my family. I mean, Shirley, I've known you for 20-something years. Joe and Jim, I've known y'all since I was a child. I mean, since I was 8 years old. I've known you, and you're a part of our family. Some people I've met just more recently, maybe over the past few years, but y'all have become more than just community to us. You are our family. I mean, I think of Crystal and Shantae. I've only known y'all for just maybe a few years, but y'all become one of our great friends. And Tony, I didn't know you before I started, but now you're my friend, man. And I'm glad that you're here. And I can go through every row, everybody. Y'all, I'm glad that you're here. And some of y'all I'm just getting to know more and more, but that's what we do here at this place. I love the way the Romans chapter 12 says it. I love this translation, actually. Romans chapter 12, Paul writes this. He says, when others are happy, be happy with them. And when they are sad, be sad. Be friendly with everyone. Don't be proud and feel that you are smarter than others. Make friends with ordinary people. Don't mistreat someone who has mistreated you, but try to earn the respect of others and do your best to live at peace with everyone. You know what? We call it church, or we call it community. What science would call it is social connectedness. I love this. Dr. Dan Gilbert, he's one of the world's leading scientists on happiness. This is what he says, and this is like the greatest thing ever. He says, we are happy when we have family, and we are happy when we have friends, and almost all the other things we think make us happy are actually just ways of getting more family and friends. Isn't that right? Isn't that true? I mean, almost everything that we do is a matter of getting either more intimate family and intimate friendship. I think that's fascinating. One of the studies that we've been looking at, this is actually, most studies are not 75 years long, but this study has been going on for over 75 years, and researchers at Harvard have been studying the lives of 724 men. And the study began in 1938, and the men chosen for the study were from two very different backgrounds. Some of the men were Harvard sophomores in 1938, probably being young men of wealth and means, I would imagine. And then the other group that they studied were boys from poor, socioeconomically unstable neighborhoods in Boston. So these are the two groups that they studied for 75 years. And the comprehensive study asked participants to answer a long list of in-depth questions every year. So these people have been part of this every year, as long as they've been alive. And researchers interviewed participants in their homes. They had access to medical records. They drew blood. They conducted brain scans. They interviewed these guys' children. They videotaped them talking to their wives about just their deepest concerns. And after 75 years of data collection, there was one clear pattern that emerged, and it is that the men with good, strong relationships were happier and they were healthier. And they found that it wasn't about the quantity of relationships that you had. Sometimes I feel like we get lost with that in kind of our social networking world with Facebook and all that, and I love that. I love Facebook, and I think there's a lot of amazing ways to use that. But I think what also can get lost is just the quantity of just people kind of coming at us at all the times. But what this research would say is that it's not about the quantity of the relationships. What matters is the quality, and by quality they mean the positive relationships with minimal conflict. And it doesn't matter if you were one of those Harvard sophomores who probably came from a wealthy background, or if you were one of the poor boys from one of the outskirts of Boston. The socioeconomics did not matter. What mattered is, did you have quality relationships? In other words, the money in your bank account is of less consequence to lasting happiness than having meaningful relationships and social connection. James Michigan, he's another sociologist, he found that quality relationships provide one or all of these 5 different types of support. So it's kind of like, what are we looking for when we want to connect, when we are connecting with other people? I mean, what is it really that we're looking for? I think one of the first things is emotional support. That is that we need relationships that nurture us. We need relationships that like cheer on our successes. I think of last weekend, we didn't have anything to do on Saturday, so we were going to sleep in. Except when you got 2 kids, that never happens anyways. So Reese walked in. He's my 4-year-old. That's Reese. That's my youngest son. I shaved his head. That's another story, another time. So that's Reese. And he came in the room, and he was so happy. He goes, Dad, I made cereal all by myself. And I was like, God, that's early, man. But he said it in a way that was like, that wasn't the whole story. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, I need to get up and kind of see what's going on. So I get up. I'm like, all right. So I get up and I go to the kitchen. And this little joker, he had taken a chair from our dining room table. He had dragged the chair into our pantry. He climbed up on the chair and he'd got Cheerios down. And not only did he get Cheerios down, he got raisins down because he sees his mama put raisins sometimes in her cereal. He wanted to be like his mama. So he got the Cheerios down, he got the raisins down, and he got a bowl down because that's where we keep his bowls. And so then he got that, and then he moved that over to the kitchen counter where he made his cereal, and then he dragged the chair again to the refrigerator where he got milk. And then he got milk and he put that on the kitchen counter. And so I'm seeing all this, and I'm kind of processing, like, what is he, like, this little guy really did it. And then I realized something. I go over to the bowl, and I turn the carton around, and this little joker had put chicken broth in his cereal instead of milk. That's it. That's what happened. And I don't know, he was so proud of himself, and he wanted his dad to be proud of him, and I'm like, man, I am so proud of you. Like, I just want to see you do it again. I'm going to dump this out. I want to see you do this again. All right, we need emotional support. We need people that's going to cheer for us, you know. We need tangible support. We need relationships that help us meet needs that we can't meet on our own. You know, I think about my wife, Rachel. I love her. Man, she's my best friend. I love her more than anything. And she does so much for our home. Not just our home. She does so much for me, so much for the boys. She does things that I could never do. She can't cook. And I'm saying this because, and I think this is a safe, space here. And she can. And she would tell that to you. And so I help her. I meet that tangible need for her. We need appraisal support. That's the next one, appraisal support. You know what? We need relationships that call us out on our junk. And I will say this about Rachel, and it is I just can get in my feelings, I can just get all up in my feelings and just be ugly. I can be ugly to her sometimes. And I love that sometimes she just says, you know what? Get it together. Get it together. This isn't you. This isn't you. Get it together. And she says it in a loving way. It's always a loving way, but we need that. We need people like that. Hey, sometimes we need to take a step back and get it together. Get it together. Call us out on our junk. Informational support. We need relationships with people who know more about stuff than we do. It might be good to have a lawyer friend, you know what I mean? You never know. It's good to have lawyer friends, or it's good to have mental health professionals that you can go to, or it's good to have accountants because, I don't know, the tax laws change all the time. It's good to have an accountant who's on your team. It's good to have a doctor or a pastor or just any kind of a mentor that's in your group, that's in your circle, that you can make a part of your family, that you can lean on for support. We need that. Companionship, support. We need relationships with people that we can just hang out with, just for fun and adventure. Y'all, this is my my neighbor, Curtis. And the first time I met Curtis, he came over to my house and he brought me a beer. And I'm like, all right, I like this guy. Curtis is gonna be my buddy. And he just is always there, and he's always available, like he's always just there to help. He's so kind and good with our boys, and he loves our boys like they're his own. And he's got 2 older boys, but we love them like they are our own. And one of the things I've learned that Curtis has taught me more than anybody in the world, and he's come here a few times, and you know what? Church is not really a deal for him. And to me, it's like I never want to I'm just glad he's my friend. You know what I mean? I'm glad that he is my neighbor. It iced in January. It snowed in this January. And so we were kind of stuck in the house for a couple days. And Curtis came over to my house, and he was like, man, what do you have in your kitchen? And I'm like, I don't know, just whatever. Go look in the refrigerator, whatever you need, yours. And this joker started pulling out sausage and ground beef, and he started getting all of our vegetables and all of our seasoning, and he got this one of our big pots. And this dude made us like the biggest pot of chili, not because we asked for it, but just because he just wanted to come hang out, and he just wanted to be our neighbor. And he has taught me more about what it means to be. I think it's so easy for us to drive into our garages and not talk to anybody because it's easier to do that. You know what I mean? And Curtis has taught me that there's a better way to be a neighbor and to be a part of a community. And so I try to learn from him. But we want all those different kinds of support. We need those kinds of support. There's a lady named Brene Brown. She's become a hero in our house. She's become a hero really at this church. I mean, we really use her a lot, and I encourage you to go buy her book. She is the smartest lady on the planet, I think. But she's a professor at the University of Houston Graduate College of Social Work. She says this. She says, a deep sense of love and belonging is an irresistible need of all people. That we are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love, to be loved, and to belong. And when those needs are not met, we don't function as we were meant to. We break, we fall apart, we numb, we ache, we hurt others, we get sick. I think that's true. That we are wired to connect with each other. You say, that's good, Ethan, but I'm super shy. Like, I'm real introverted. Like, meeting somebody else, gives me anxiety. And I get it. You say, what about shy people? What if you're introverted? Listen, if you're shy, if you're an introvert, I think there's good news because you have the ability to feel connected to others on the inside, even from a distance. And I believe that you reap the same social connectedness benefits as extroverts who connect by going out and connecting in a crowd. Listen, an introverted sense of connectedness is knowing that you and I, that we're going to be there for each other, and that's good enough. I love that. And I think that's your space. That's your space. That's the introverted space. So look, we're in this together. You know that? Doesn't matter if you're an introvert, extrovert. We're all in this together. You say, how do I increase my social connectedness? There's probably a lot of different ways. I think these three are helpful to be reminded of. I think the first way to increase our social connectedness is that we talked about this in kindness, we give, we share, we support, we do acts of kindness for other people. I think that's an amazing place to start. And listen, acts of kindness, social connectedness flows out of kindness. I believe that. They all flow with each other. Second thing is this: take care of your personal, mental, and physical health. We're going to talk about this in a couple with Dad. Dad's going to talk about this in a couple weeks. Take care of yourself. The brain is an amazing thing. It's not really a muscle. I guess it's an organ, but it kind of acts like a muscle. It's its own thing. It acts like a muscle. It needs to be worked out, right? Your physical body, it's good to go do something, go walk or something or run and go whatever, lift a weight or something if that's what you want to do. Just take care of yourself. And sometimes we just need to remind ourselves, oh yeah, I've been eating like crap for a long time. Maybe I should stop doing that. Well, yeah, it might be good to change it up. All right, take care of yourself. And third, and this is the hardest, is ask for help. Well, we're proud people. I know. We're proud people. I get it. It's good to ask for help. There's answers that you don't know in places that maybe you've never even thought about looking before. We encourage mental health professionals here at this place. We encourage that. Absolutely. Go see somebody you can talk to. Do that. Richard Rohr says this: if the Trinity reveals that God is relationship itself. Does that make sense? You get it? The Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the way that we think about God of the Bible in this Trinitarian way of thinking about God. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and that they are a relationship within itself. And if the Trinity reveals that God is relationship itself, then the goal of the spiritual journey is to discover and move towards connectedness on ever new levels. The contemplative mind enjoys union on all levels. And we may begin by making little connections with other people and with nature and with animals, and then we grow into deeper connectedness with people. And finally, we can experience full connectedness as union with God. Remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. And without connectedness and communion, we don't exist fully as our truest selves. And becoming who we really are is a matter of learning how to become more and more deeply connected. And no one can possibly go to heaven alone, or it would not be heaven. Isn't that good? Listen, I don't believe anyone came here this morning because you wanted new information. You know, y'all could just Google it. You know, you can Google that if you want more information, you know. I think the reason that you came is that there is this deep sense in all of us that we want to belong, and that there's a community here for us. And we're a weird place. I mean, I love it exactly the way it is. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. I do challenge you this week, and I want y'all to tell me if you do this, because I don't know if you're lying. I want to challenge you every day this week. I want you to do something kind. Can y'all do that? Can you do something kind? Go cut your neighbor's grass, or go do something. Okay, go do something kind, and I want you to do it every day, and I want you to make a conscious decision to do that every day. And I want you to come back next week, and I want to hear about how your week is going. Okay? Well, I love y'all very, very much. Tell your friends to come. This is a really cool summer series we're doing. And I'm thankful for the reminder of being kind and being connected to other people.